Storydepths presents audiobook of the Curators Series, Book 1, Zephy Awakening by Kennard. You are listening to Episode 6 from Zephy Awakening. Click on the playlist to listen to previous episodes. All rights reserved. Chapter 2. On the Run. When Lena left, Zephy found himself standing alone in his cottage, looking at doors she had just walked out of. His emotions were tempest of confusion, frustration, and curiosity. Their conversation had unveiled part deep inside, tearing apart something inside him, releasing flood of questions he had never dared to ask. Who was he really? What was his purpose in life? Why did he keep forgetting people and events that seemed important? Why didn't he age like everyone else? What in the world were these powers Lena spoke of, powers that could apparently alter the fabric of the world around him? His questions churned in his head, one more disturbing than the one before. He had spent life with routine and simplicity, comforted by familiar tasks that came with repairing cars and fishing. Now, those felt like thin veneers over the abyss of the unknown. He felt like he was hanging on the edge of that abyss, his mind trying to peer down into dark depths without really knowing what he might find. He stumbled around his cottage, his thoughts in disarray. He could not remember having been this way before. Peace had always laced his life, bringing with it a certain degree of acceptance of status quo. However, now it all seemed to be thrown into doubt. He made his way to the window, looked out at the sea. It had calmed down now, waves still. This, in contrast, showed him the full measure of the turmoil inside him. He could feel the gravity of the questions pressing down on him, each of them waiting for an answer he didn't have. Why did he keep forgetting things? Zephy had simply learned to live with his forgetfulness in the past, but it now seemed like someone had played a cruel joke on him. How many people had he forgotten? How many important moments had he let slip through his fingers like sand? Why doesn't he age? He looked at his reflection through the window and saw the same face that had been his reflection for as long as he could remember, as if time had left him stranded, never to pass his way again. Was it a gift or curse? What did it mean for him? What powers does he have? Just the idea that he might control the weather was terrifying. Somehow his emotions would bring about such changes in weather. He had felt the wind and seen the ocean's fury just from his anger. What else was he capable of? What other hidden abilities lurked within him, waiting to be unleashed? Zephy sat down in a chair, his head in his hands. The calmness on the surface that he had always kept was beginning to crack, revealing the storm that was his emotions and questions. Felt lost, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. He had lived a life of simplicity and solitude for so long. Now he felt like a man standing at the edge of something immense and unknown. The answers he looked for were out there, somewhere they were, but finding them meant confronting the very fabric of his existence. As the night dragged on, Zephy resolved he would find out the truth about himself. Too many questions at stake here. He needed to understand himself, why he was different, what his true purpose might be. He knew he could not turn back now, even though the path ahead was uncertain. With a resolute sigh, he stood up and looked out at ocean once more. He had lived in shadows of his own life for too long. Time to step into the light and seek answers he had been avoiding for so long. As dawn broke, Zephy decided to take matters into their own hands. The questions swirling in Zephy's mind were too overwhelming to ignore any longer. Without informing Lena or anyone else, Zephy made up his mind. He would leave Kit's hammock and find answers on his own. In the back of the garage, covered in a layer of dust, sat an abandoned classic car from the early 1900s. Zephy had fixed it long ago, a project that had kept him occupied for months. Now, it seemed like the perfect vehicle for the journey. Zephy packed a few essentials, grabbed Rex, and set off just as the sun began to rise. As Zephy drove, familiar rumble of the engine and the feel of the steering wheel in his hands brought a sense of comfort. It had been a long time since Zephy had last driven, but it came back naturally, like muscle memory. The roads were smooth, and Zephy navigated through the forested area with ease. Rex, sitting beside him, seemed to enjoy the ride as much as Zephy did. His ears perked up, and he stuck his head out the window, savoring the rush of wind. Within 10 minutes, he was out of Kit's hammock. Zephy didn't have a specific destination in mind, just a vague sense of heading west. The uncertainty didn't bother Zephy. It felt liberating to be on the move, leaving behind the confusion and unanswered questions. The forest around them was serene, with early morning light filtering through the trees. Zephy breathed in deeply, enjoying the fresh air and the sense of freedom. For the first time in a long while, Zephy felt a glimmer of excitement. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he was ready to face whatever came his way. He was finally free of his regular life, in which he had most likely been locked in Kit's hammock for centuries. Felt liberated and ready to discover the world on his own. Back in Kit's hammock, Evelyn was first to notice Zephy's absence. She quickly realized something was wrong and immediately contacted Owen. "Owen, it's Evelyn," she said, her voice urgent. "Zephy is gone. He left town early this morning without informing anyone." Owen felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "What do you mean he's gone? Where could he have gone?" "I don't know," Evelyn admitted, her voice filled with worry. "This behavior is new. Zephy has never done anything like this before. He's on the run and we're unable to track him. This is exactly why I warned you and Lena to be cautious about what you revealed to him." Owen, feeling weight of situation, immediately called Lena. "Lena, we have a problem. Zephy's gone. Evelyn just told me he left town early this morning and no one knows where he went." Lena's heart sank. Why would he do that? What triggered this? "I don't know." Owen's voice was tense, but Evelyn said this behavior is unprecedented. She warned us that Zephy might react unpredictably if he learned too much. We have to find him before something happens. Evelyn joined them, her face etched with concern. "We must act quickly. Zephy's powers are tied to his emotions. If he's feeling lost or confused, there's no telling what could happen. We need to track him down and bring him back safely." The three of them quickly formulated a plan, hoping to find Zephy before his emotions led to another disaster. They knew time was of essence, and that the fragile balance they had worked so hard to maintain was now at risk. The search for Zephy had begun. They were determined to find him before it was too late. Zephy drove westward. The road stretched out before him as uncharted path. No clear destination, only growing need to find answers to the questions that plagued his mind. The drive itself was a strange mixture of familiarity and novelty. He hadn't driven in years, but his body remembered the motions. The act of driving felt surprisingly natural. Rex sat contentedly in the passenger seat, occasionally sticking his head out the window to catch the wind. After 4 hours of continuous driving, Zephy spotted a small diner by side of the road. The sign read, "Mabel's Diner." Its neon lights flickered slightly in the midday sun. He decided it was as good place as any to stop. He needed to grab a bite to eat. Pulling into the gravel parking lot, he parked the car and got out. Stretching his legs, he took in the unfamiliar surroundings. He patted Rex on the head. "Stay here, buddy. I won't be long." He left the window slightly open for air. Rex settled down. Rex watched Zephy as he walked towards the diner. Inside, the diner was quaint and cozy. Checkered tablecloths covered the tables. Counter lined with stools, a few patrons were scattered around. They enjoyed their meals and chatted quietly. Zephy found an empty booth and sat down. The cushion creaked softly beneath him. After years of working in the garage, he had saved a good amount of cash. He had brought it along for this journey. He was grateful for the foresight. He knew he'd need it for food and lodging as he searched for answers. A waitress approached, her smile warm and welcoming. "What can I get you today?" she asked. She pulled out a notepad. Zephy glanced at the menu, his stomach rumbling. "I'll have cheeseburger and coffee, please," said, handing the menu back. "Coming right up," she replied. She jotted down his order before heading back to the kitchen. As he waited, Zephy looked around the diner, his mind still swirling with thoughts. He had left Kit's hammock without a word, driven by need to understand himself and the mysteries of his existence. Who was he, really? What was his purpose? Why did he forget so much, and why didn't he age? The questions were relentless. He knew he couldn't turn back until he had some answers. The waitress returned with his food. Zephy thanked her, taking a bite of the burger. It was delicious, the flavors grounding him momentarily in the present. He sipped his coffee, feeling a bit more alert and focused. As he ate, he thought about the journey ahead. He had no map, no plan, just an instinctual drive to keep moving forward. Once he finished his meal, Zephy paid the bill, leaving generous tip. He stepped outside. The afternoon sun warmed his face. Rex greeted him with wagging tail. Zephy smiled, feeling a sense of companionship that was comforting amidst uncertainty. He climbed back into the car. He patted Rex on the head. "Ready to hit the road again?" Rex barked softly, as if in agreement. With deep breath, Zephy started the engine, pulled out of the parking lot, continued driving west. The open road ahead was symbol of the unknown journey he had embarked upon. Despite the uncertainty, part of him felt alive. Driven by hope, he believed that somewhere out there he would find answers he sought. Zephy glanced over at Rex and smiled. "So, Rex, where to now?" he asked, his voice filled with sense of excitement and adventure. This journey was as new to Rex as it was to him. Zephy found comfort in sharing it with his furry friend. Rex tilted his head, as if contemplating the question. Zephy chuckled at the sight. "What do you think, buddy? Should we keep heading west? Maybe we should take a turn and see what we find." He reached over and scratched Rex behind ears, feeling simple joy of their companionship. "This is our first trip together, Rex. We can go anywhere and do anything. The world is wide open." Rex barked softly, his tail thumping against seat in agreement. Zephy took that as a sign to keep going. "West it is then." He adjusted his grip on the steering wheel. "Let's see what's out there." The car hummed along road scenery, changing from dense forest to rolling hills. Zephy couldn't remember last time he felt this free. Questions and doubts still lingered in his mind. But for now, push them aside. This moment was about exploration and discovery. Chance to experience world in a way he hadn't for a long time. As they drove, Zephy talked to Rex about everything and nothing. He pointed out interesting landmarks, shared stories from the garage, and speculated about what they might find on their journey. Rex listened attentively, occasionally barking or wagging his tail in response. "We could find a nice lake to stop at, do some fishing," Zephy mused. "Or maybe we'll come across town with diner, like the one we just left. Who knows? The possibilities are endless." Rex seemed to agree. Leaning his head out the window again, catch sense of passing countryside. Zephy laughed, feeling warmth in his chest. This was new chapter for both of them. A chance to break away from confines of their past and explore world together. They continued west, the road unfurling before them like a promise of adventure. Zephy didn't know what lay ahead. For the first time in a long while, he felt a spark of excitement and hope. With Rex by his side, he was ready to face whatever came their way. "Onward, my friend," Zephy said. Grin spread across his face. "Let's see where this road takes us." They drove on. Future is wide open and full of possibilities. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky turned a deep shade of indigo. First stars began to twinkle above. Zephy, feeling the fatigue of long day's drive, decided it was time to find a place to rest for the night. The old car had been running smoothly, but he knew it deserved a break as much as he and Rex did. Spotting a sign for a motel up ahead, he pulled into the parking lot. He parked near the front entrance. The neon sign buzzed faintly, cast a soft glow over the small, slightly worn building. Zephy got out of the car, stretching his legs before opening the door for Rex to hop out. "Come on, buddy," he said. He gave Rex a reassuring pat. "Let's see if we can get room for the night." Inside reception area was modest, with old-fashioned decor and faint smell of coffee lingering in air. Zephy approached front desk. A middle-aged receptionist greeted him with polite but tired smile. "Good evening," Zephy said, trying to sound as friendly as possible. "I'd like to get small room. It needs to be pet-friendly. My dog Rex is traveling with me." The receptionist's smile faltered slightly. "I'm sorry, sir. We don't allow pets in rooms." Zephy felt a flicker of frustration, but he kept his expression calm. "I see. Are there any other motels nearby that allow pets?" As he spoke, lights near reception desk flickered slightly. The receptionist looked up puzzled, but Zephy didn't notice. His powers were reacting to his emotions again, though he remained unaware of the subtle sign. "There's another motel about 13 miles away. Should allow pets," the receptionist said. Pointing out directions on map, she added, "It's a bit of drive, but it's closest one I can think of." "Thank you," Zephy replied. Trying to keep his voice steady, he added, "I appreciate your help." He turned and walked back to car, Rex trotting along beside him. As they got in, Zephy looked over at Rex. His expression softened. "I'm sorry, buddy. We have to hang on for a bit longer. We'll find a place to rest soon." Rex seemed to understand. He settled back into his seat with a quiet huff. Zephy started the engine. He pulled back onto the road, heading towards the next motel. The darkness around them was thick. Headlights cut through it as they drove. After a short drive, they arrived at Second Motel. The place had slightly run-down look, with peeling paint and dim lights. It wasn't the most inviting place, but it had a sign that read, "Pet-friendly." That was all Zephy needed to see. They parked and headed inside. The lobby was small and dimly lit, with a single clerk sitting behind desk looking half asleep. Zephy approached and asked for room, making sure to mention that Rex was with him. The clerk nodded, barely looking up. "Sure thing, we've got a room available, just sign here." Zephy quickly filled out paperwork, paid for the room in cash, and took the key. He glanced around the lobby once more, he noting the worn furniture and the faint smell of mildew. It wasn't the most comfortable place, but it would do for the night. They found their room. It was small but clean enough. Zephy set down their bags. He let Rex explore for a moment. The bed creaked as he sat down. It felt good to finally rest, after a long day on road. "Sorry about earlier, Rex," Zephy said, stroking his companion's fur. "We'll make do here tonight. Tomorrow we'll see what road brings us next." Rex looked up at him with trusting eyes, then settled down on the floor beside the bed. Zephy lay back, listening to the sounds of the night outside the thin walls. Despite the motel's shabby appearance, he felt a strange sense of calm. As sleep began to overtake him, Zephy's thoughts drifted to the flickering lights at First Motel and the subtle reactions of his surroundings. He wondered if there was more to his emotions and the world around him than he understood. But for now, he pushed those thoughts aside, letting weariness of the day pull him into a deep, dreamless sleep. The next morning, first rays of sunlight filtered through thin curtains of Zephy's motel room, nudging him awake. He stretched and rubbed his eyes. Stiffness lingered in his back from old creaky bed. Rex, always an early riser, was already up, wagging his tail. He was eager to start the day. After a quick shower and packing up their few belongings, Zephy checked out of motel. Clerk barely acknowledged him, handed over the key, and muttered a half-hearted farewell. Zephy didn't mind. He was just glad to be on road again. He stepped out into crisp morning air, feeling a sense of relief as he approached the old car. When he got closer, he noticed something, or rather, someone unexpected. A girl looking to be about 12 to 15 years old was sitting casually in driver's seat. She had fair skin, shoulder-length hair, and a defiant look in her eyes. Rex was already out of car, sniffing around and wagging his tail. Zephy frowned, irritation bubbling up. "Hey, what are you doing in my car?" he called out, tone sharp. The girl looked up at him with a mixture of annoyance and amusement. "None of your business," she replied coolly. Her fingers idly drummed on steering wheel. Zephy's frown deepened. "It is my business. That's my car you're sitting in." She ignored him. She turned her attention to Rex instead. She climbed out of the car, began to pet Rex, who seemed to enjoy the attention. "Nice dog you've got here," she said, completely disregarding Zephy's annoyance. Zephy's patience was wearing thin. He stepped closer. He tried to assert his authority. "Look, kid, I don't know what you think you're doing. You can't just go around sitting in people's cars. Now get out and move along." The girl rolled her eyes, stood up, crossed her arms defiantly. "I wasn't hurting anything, and don't call me kid. My name's Lily." Zephy wasn't in the mood for games. "Fine, Lily, just stay out of my car, all right?" Paused. "We've got a long way to go." Lily shrugged, clearly unfazed by his stern tone. "Whatever, old man. I was just looking. Besides, your car looks like it's been through a lot. You should be glad someone's paying it any attention." Zephy felt a surge of annoyance. "Old man? I'm not that old," he retorted. He knew arguing with a teenager was pointless. Lily smirked, not backing down. "Could have fooled me. Anyway, good luck with your trip or whatever." She gave Rex a final pat, sauntered off. Zephy stood by the car, shaking his head in disbelief. He opened the car door and looked at Rex, who seemed perfectly content. "And you believe that, Rex? Kids these days," he muttered. He was still annoyed, starting to see humor in the situation. Rex barked and wagged his tail. Zephy climbed into driver's seat. He started the engine. Glanced in mirror. Lily was a distant figure walking away with air of nonchalance. "Let's get going," Zephy said to Rex, pulling out of motel parking lot. Back onto the road. As they drove away, he couldn't help but think about odd encounter. The girl had been rude and brash, but there was something intriguing about her confidence and disregard for rules. Unable to shake off uneasy feeling of leaving Lily alone in shady motel, Zephy decided to turn car around. The place had given him bad vibe. Despite her rude demeanor, he couldn't just abandon young girl in place like that. He pulled back into motel parking lot. He scanned area and soon spotted Lily sitting outside one of rooms. Her shoulders were hunched, her expression guarded. Zephy parked car and got out. He approached her with a mix of frustration and concern. "Hey kid, I mean Lily," he called out, catching her attention. Lily looked up, her face a mask of defiance. "What do you want now?" Zephy crossed his arms, trying to appear stern but not intimidating. "Is that your room?" he asked, nodding towards door behind her. "Are you with someone?" Lily shook her head. "Nope, I'm all alone, just traveling west." Zephy frowned. "What about your family or friends? Shouldn't you be with someone?" She shrugged her eyes, narrowing slightly. "I don't have any. It's just me." Zephy sighed, running hand through his hair. "All right, look. This place doesn't seem safe for someone like you to be hanging around alone. How about I give you a lift? I'm heading west too." Lily's eyes flickered with surprise. She quickly masked it with a smirk. "You're offering me ride? What's the catch?" "No catch." Zephy's voice was firm. "But there are rules. You don't talk unless necessary. You don't touch anything in the car. Got it?" Lily crossed her arms, a challenging look in her eyes. "I don't need your help. I can take care of myself." Zephy stared at her, his patience thinning. "Maybe, but you shouldn't have to. It's a long road ahead. I'd feel better knowing you're not stuck here. Take it or leave it." Lily looked down, seeming to weigh her options. After a moment, she sighed and stood up. "Fine. I'll take the ride. But don't think I'm going to thank you or anything." Zephy shrugged, turning back towards car. "Wasn't expecting a thank you. Let's go." He led the way back to the car. Rex followed close behind. As they reached car, Zephy opened the door. He gestured for Lily to get in. "Remember, no touching and no unnecessary talking." Lily rolled her eyes but climbed into back seat without protest. Rex settled beside her. His tail thumped against seat in quiet approval. Zephy got behind wheel. He started engine and pulled out of motel parking lot again. Morning sun was now higher in sky, cast long shadows across road. They resumed their journey westward. For a while, car was filled with tense silence. Zephy kept his eyes on road. Lily stared out the window. Her expression was unreadable. Despite their mutual rudeness, there was a strange sense of camaraderie. It was in their shared solitude. After a few miles, Zephy glanced in rearview mirror. He saw Lily petting Rex. Rex seemed content with the arrangement. Zephy decided to let it slide. He focused on road ahead, the uncertain path they were traveling together. "Hang tight, Rex," he muttered to himself. "This is going to be an interesting trip." This was episode 6 from the Curators Series, Book 1, Zephy Awakening by Kennard. Available only on Storydepths YouTube channel. Click on the playlist to listen to other episodes.